This is our video for Chapter 4, Section 5, Equations with Fractions. What you'll learn in this video is to solve equations with fractions. Remember, to move a number from one side of an equation to the other, you do the opposite, or the inverse operation. So that means if you're adding in the original equation, you subtract to move it. If you're multiplying in the original equation, you divide to move it, and so on. First, let's look at using mental math to solve equations with fractions. So if we look at this one where it says solve 3 1/8 plus x equals 15 7/8. If we were going to look at this with a model, it would be like this. Our end number is 15 7/8, so that's the big bar at the top. 3 1/8 is what we know, and then x is what we don't know. So to use this with mental math, first we're going to look at 1/8. So think, all right, I have 1/8. What do I need to add to 1/8 to get to 7/8? All right, well, if I have 1/8, I need 6 more to get to 7/8, so I know my fraction's going to be 6/8. Then if I have 3, if we look at the 3 and the 15, so 3 plus what will get me to 15? Well, 15 minus 3 is 12. So 12 is going to be my solid number. So our fraction then, or our answer, is 12 6/8. Gets me to 15 7/8. Or since we know we can simplify 6/8, you would really say 12 3/4 will get me to 7/8. Because we simplified our fraction. Pause the video and try these 3 in your notebook. We have no terms for this video, so all you have to do is the exercises. Remember to write down the original equation, and since this is mental math, just write down what your answer is. You can use inverse operations to get the variable alone on one side of an equation. Remember that an inverse operation is just doing the opposite of whatever's happening in the original equation. And remember, when you're moving a number, you're moving it away from the side with the variable. Now let's look at solving an equation with fractions with just using the inverse operations. So in the original equation, we have subtraction. So the opposite of subtraction is addition, so we're going to add 1/3 to both sides. So these two cancel out. Your variable comes down, your equals comes down. Then our new equation is 5/6 plus 1/3. Now remember from doing when we did adding and subtracting fractions, you cannot do that unless you have a common denominator. So we're going to look at the denominators. We have 6 and 3. Remember, the first thing you need to do is look and see if one of the numbers will multiply up to the other number. So, all right, well, I know 3 times 2 is 6, so 5/6 is fine, and then I'm going to multiply 1/3, the top and the bottom, by 2. So my new equation, the 5/6 stays the same because we didn't need to change it, plus then 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6, and then you just need to add across. So that would be equal to 7/6. We know we can't leave it that way, so we need to change it into a mixed number because 7/6 is an improper fraction. So 7 goes into 6 one time with 1 left over because 1 times 6 is 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. 1 left over becomes your new numerator. Denominator just stays the same. So in our equation, x is 1 1/6. Pause the video and do these two in your notebook. Remember, write down the original equation and show all your work. If you do not show all your work, you will not get credit for doing the homework. Now let's look at solving an equation by multiplying. In the last one we were doing solving by adding. This time we're going to solve by multiplying. We're going to be multiplying because we know when we have x over 8 that this is a division problem. And to move anything away from a variable in an equation, you do the opposite of what's happening. And so if we're dividing, we're going to multiply. So our x is going to stay the same because we're not doing anything with the x yet. Then the 8, we're going to multiply both sides by 8/1. equal sign stays the same, 20 stays the same, times 8 over 1. Now, our 8's are going to cancel out. That's why that 8 goes away. So your x comes down by itself. Your equals comes down. Then 20 times 8 is 160 because 2 times 8 is 16 plus the 0 for the 20 gives us 160. Pause the video and do these two in your notebook. Again, make sure you write down the original equation and show all your work. When dealing with fractions, to solve 2/3 x equals 8, multiply each side of the equation by the reciprocal of 2/3, or 3 over 2. Now let's solve an equation with a fraction in it. Anytime you have a fraction, to get the fraction away from the variable, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So our original equation is 2/3 x equals 8. So if we have 2/3 x equals 8. To move the 2/3, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. And you're going to do that to both sides. So the reason this works is the 3's cancel out and the 2's cancel out. So that makes everything by the variable go away. So your variable comes down by itself, your equals comes down. Then we have 8 times 3 is 24. There's no denominator on 8, so your denominator stays the same. Then that's an improper fraction, so we need to look to simplify. 2 goes into 24 evenly, so our answer is 12. Now we can go through and check our work. So if we have 2/3 times 12, we want to see if it equals 8. So let's see, 2 times 12 is 24 divided by 3 equals 8. To move the 3, to get the 24 by itself, or really we're just going to simplify 24 over 3. 24 over 3, 3 goes into 24 8 times, 8 equals 8. We did it correctly, we're right. Pause the video and do this one in your notebook. Show me checking your solution to verify that you're right. Now let's look at a word problem. It says a volunteer group has 6 yards of material to make flags for Community Day. Each flag uses 5/8 of a yard of material. How many flags can the group make? Well, first we need to look at our words. So we know yards per flag times the number of flags equals the total yards we need. So we have the yards per flag, we don't know the number of flags, and we know the total yards. So B will be our variable for the number of flags we don't know. So our equation would be 5/8 for the 5/8 of a yard times B, our variable we don't know, equals 6, our 6 yards of material. So that would be 5/8 B equals 6. To move the 5/8, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So the 8 and the 5 would cancel each other out. Then 8/5 times 6 over 1. 8 times 6 is 48. Then so you would have 48 over 5. Then you would simplify that into a mixed number, which would give you 9 3/5, because 5 goes into 48 9 times with 3 left over, so the 3 becomes your numerator and your denominator stays the same. Pause the video and do this one in your notebook. You're going to need the information from the equation in the last slide, so you're just going to be recreating that equation, but changing it. Instead of having 6 yards of total fabric, you're going to solve as if you had 13 yards of total fabric. Pause the video and do the check your understanding in your notebook. Please be sure to label it as check your understanding. Remember to write the original problems and show all your work, unless it says mental math as it does for 5, 6, and 7. So those you just need to write the original equation and write your answer. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you tomorrow.